Hello and welcome to the CDO Magazine interview series. I'm Amy McNee, SVP of Global Solution Architecture at Informatica, and today I have the pleasure of talking with Pascale Hutz, Chief Data Officer, EVP Enterprise Digital and Data Solutions at American Express. Thank you for joining today, Pascale. I'm really excited about this conversation today.
No, my pleasure. Happy to be here.
How do you measure effectiveness of your literacy programs and of, the different functions? How are you guys making sure that these things are continuing to be effective over time?
Well, with the different programs, attendance is like the basics. Like, are people showing up? Are people taking advantage of the curriculums that we put out there? That's one way to make sure that the literacy is out there. And then, in our day-to-day, we can see where when you're having conversations with your business partners, are they able to have the same level of conversation about data as you are? So we can, in the way that we operate, you can see it when you're working with your business partners. But I mean, to me, and we've talked about this a little bit, really the effectiveness of a data program to me is not so much the nuts and bolts of the program itself. It's, are you driving the business results across the company? And I think that's why I think our federated model to me works the best, in that we have the people that know the data for their business unit embedded in the business unit. It is part of their group. So if the business unit is successful, we know that underneath it all is a strong data team.
I hear a lot from different companies that they struggle to keep the business interested. And you've done a couple of things I think that are really important. Number one, you've made your data teams a core part of the business, and you've instrumented success metrics that the business cares about. And that it sounds like a great partnership to me, to make sure that everybody knows what's in it for them. And I think that's where we fail sometimes as data professionals, when we get so hung up around the data itself. Sometimes I think we forget that we're not keeping this data just because we like to. We're actually keeping it to drive a business outcome.
Yeah, I mean, I could not agree with you more. I go to all these conferences, and it's usually a topic of, how do you make sure that your program is relevant to your business stakeholders? I'm like, if that's the question you're solving, you've already failed. Like that's it, game over. Like it is. And the fact that this is what you're spending your time, you should be like, we're not curating data for the sake of gathering big piles of data. It's to drive business outcomes. I do think sometimes, because it is such a specialized field, we kind of get very insular and like stuck in ourselves. We got to remember why we're doing this, to drive outcomes.
I'm curious to your opinion on this, because I have some theories on this. And I think some of it is a little bit of a throwback. I've been doing this now for 30 years as well, which things were a lot different 30 years ago, right? You remember the big bang data warehouse take 2 years before you rolled anything out.
Yeah.
And you didn't, and a lot of times, back then the data teams maybe engaged a little with the business, but they really didn't until they had something. They wanted to have something ready, and then they would take it to them, and it was like, ta-da. So we didn't develop that muscle from the beginning, right? I think some companies really haven't adopted more of an aligned or even agile approach with data, where it's not trying to build that whole big thing, but it's building the things that matter and doing that iteratively even. So
yeah, and tying it back to, for the business leaders, of what's in it for them.
Yeah.
Like, why should they care about these things? And I think that's the important piece. Is we get very excited about the latest technology, but our business partners don't need to be that excited. They need to be excited about the outcomes we can drive for them, right? Like we got to drive the right conversation around data.
I can guarantee they don't care how we get there. They just
absolutely
care
not. Yeah. Like, you can see their eyes glaze over. Talk about cloud, they're like, snooze. Like, it's just, talk to them about, that personalization algorithm you wanted to do that takes like a week to run. We can do it in like 3 seconds. Like, then you get somebody's attention. right?
Yes, exactly. And then when you can quantify what that means, what the difference means, that 3 seconds versus the week, like that's
Yeah,
where you see people get excited.
that's
Uh,
right.
I think sometimes we forget, like, I think, have you ever heard of the term data storytellers? I've heard that term a few
Yeah.
times in my career. There's a gal on my team at one point when I was at Comcast, and she used to call herself a data storyteller. And I think we forget that part, like the storytelling piece of the data but then what the value is at the end. So I really love what you're doing. I did have one question for you though.
Sure.
So I have seen companies struggle. I've seen other companies embed the data team in the business or
Mhm.
have like more decentralization, but they struggle then with data silos. And I
Yeah.
have seen companies like all of a sudden they lose their ability to innovate quickly because they don't have the full picture. So, how are you avoiding that trap of becoming siloed in your data?
Yeah, no, it's a really great question. And I think um it sort of gets at the whole federated versus decentralized, right? So we have a federated model, and what makes that work is you need a strong central team. So a team that has the ability to wield influence and make decisions. So now the benefit in our world is the data platforms are within my remit. That may or may not always be the case with different CDOs. All of the data is stored within a central utility, and so you can't build your own data store somewhere else. Our technology team will not let you do that. It's like against the rules, if you will. We point everybody to this is the solution right here. So at least the data isn't fragmented. Because I think that's a bit of the problem. And then um, we have to have a strong oversight with our federated data offices. We set the policies, we set the standards, we make sure that they're adhering to them. And it's not always just the stick, there's the carrot too. We obtain funding for them. If they need additional resources, they can come to me. If there are um, debates between two different teams that are sharing the same data, like we will sort that out for them. So it's a little bit of stick and a little bit of carrot, but the central team has to play a strong role for it to work out well. Otherwise, you'll just be a policymaker, and then everybody will do whatever they want. So you have to have a central group that can actually affect change.
I think there's a lot of good points in there because I think where I've seen the struggles is in a couple places. One, if you don't have that strong central uh, organization, you can end up buying the same things over and over again,
Oh
which is
my God,
yeah, total waste of money.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, we had to extend a little bit of our rules a few years ago to extend to business insight tools. So we were finding that, every manner of software company is going around to every line of business selling their wares. And we were finding ourselves with 3, 4, or 5 different business insight tools. And we're like, that's not a good thing. So we had to put a stop to that.
Pascal, I can't thank you enough for joining me
My
today and
pleasure.
sharing all of the experiences that you have and the insights with the audience. So thank you very much. Uh, Please visit cdomagazine.tech for additional interviews. Thanks for joining us today and enjoy the rest of your day.